If your surname is on this list, you are not being handed a title. You are being shown something the Russian aristocracy spent centuries guarding, and the Soviet state spent 70 years trying to erase. How noble blood actually moved through Russia, which families carried the oldest lines on earth, and why the honest answer to, "Am I descended from nobility?" is stranger and more specific than any list can promise. 12 surnames, 12 bloodlines, and by the end of this video, you will understand the Russian nobility better than almost anyone who ever paid for a framed coat of arms. Stay until number 1, because that name belongs to a line so old it predates Russia itself, founded by a man who, according to the chronicles, was invited to rule because the tribes could not stop fighting. First, the fact that governs everything. Surnames in Russia were not universal. They became mandatory in the 16th century for the privileged classes first: princes, boyars, nobles, merchants. Ordinary peasants often did not have fixed surnames until the 19th century, some not until after serfdom ended in 1861. So the very oldest Russian family names tend to belong to exactly the people who needed them first, the ones with land, lineage, and something to inherit. But, and hold on to this, a surname ending in the common suffixes ov, ev, in, tells you almost nothing by itself, because those endings simply mean belonging to, and they were attached to first names and nicknames at every level of society. The name is a clue. It is never a certificate. Number 12, Nekrasov, from Nekrasiv, not beautiful, not pretty. And this is the perfect place to begin, because it demolishes the whole fantasy at the outset. Many Russian surnames come from deliberately unflattering nicknames, ugly, given on purpose. The belief was that an unattractive name would keep away evil spirits and the envious eye. A child called not pretty was a child being protected. If your name is Nekrasov, your bloodline carries a protective insult, and it tells you your ancestors thought about names the way people everywhere once did, as charms, not as claims. Most Russian surnames are like this: occupational, protective, descriptive, beautiful, and entirely common. The next surname is genuinely princely, and its origin is a single iron glove worn in a single battle. Number 11. Golitsyn. The Golitsyns are one of the largest and noblest princely houses in all of Russia, and they descend not from Russian roots, but from the Lithuanian Grand Duke Gediminas of the 14th century. The name itself began as a nickname. A boyar named Mikhail Bulgakov earned the byname Golitsa, a gauntlet, an iron glove, which he wore, by tradition, at the Battle of Orsha in 1514. From that glove, a dynasty. The Golitsyns owned vast estates around Moscow, Arkhangelskoye, Kuzminki, served as commanders under Ivan the Terrible, and one was the favorite of Princess Sophia, Peter the Great's sister. If your name is Golitsyn, your bloodline may trace to a Lithuanian Grand Duke, through a boyar remembered for a single armored hand. Number 10 is an old boyar name that shares an ancestor with the imperial family itself. Number 10. Sheremetev. The Sheremetevs were an ancient boyar family, and here is the remarkable part. They share a common ancestor with the Romanovs, the boyar Andrei Kobila, who served a Moscow prince in the 14th century. The Sheremetevs sat in the Boyar Duma, the council of the realm, for generations. Under Peter the Great, Boris Sheremetev became the first man ever granted the title of Count in Russia. His descendant Nikolai was among the richest men in the empire, owner of the Kuskovo and Ostankino estates, and famous for marrying his own serf, the actress Praskovia Zhemchugova, and asking the emperor's permission to legitimize the union. If your name is Sheremetev, your bloodline touches the same root as the last dynasty of Russian emperors. Number 9 carries a name that means something enormous, and the family lived up to it. Number 9. Dolgoruky. From Dolgaya Ruka, the long arm, meaning far-reaching influence, an arm that could reach anywhere. The Dolgorukys were a princely Rurikid family, descendants of the founding dynasty of Russia, and the name was earned. They were among the most powerful clans at the Moscow court, and their reach in politics and the military was exactly what the name advertised. If your name is Dolgoruky, your bloodline is Rurikid, the oldest and highest category of Russian nobility there is, and the name itself is a boast about power that the family spent centuries proving true. Number 8 is a name that sounds Russian to the bone and came from the Tatar world entirely. Number 8. Yusupov. The Yusupovs descended from Tatar nobility, integrated into the Russian aristocracy, and became one of the wealthiest families in the entire empire. Richer, by some accounts, than the Romanovs themselves. This is one of the great truths the surname industry hides. Much of the Russian aristocracy did not originate in Russia. Families of Tatar, Lithuanian, Georgian, Circassian, Greek, and Polish origin poured into the Russian service nobility over the centuries and became its highest ranks. The last of the male Yusupov line was Felix Yusupov, one of the men who murdered Rasputin in 1916. If your name is Yusupov, your bloodline runs from the steppe into the very summit of the Russian court. Number 7 is a princely name of Georgian origin, carried by a man who died stopping Napoleon. Number 7. Bagration. The Bagrationi were a royal house of Georgia, who ruled that kingdom from the Middle Ages until the early 19th century. When Georgia came under Russian control, the family entered the Russian nobility at the highest level. Prince Pyotr Bagration became one of the most celebrated generals of the Napoleonic Wars, and was mortally wounded at the Battle of Borodino in 1812, defending Russia against the French invasion. If your name is Bagration, your bloodline is not merely noble, it is royal, the blood of the kings of Georgia, woven into the Russian military pantheon. Before we continue, if you are finding this useful, subscribe to Origins Decoded. Every week we uncover the history hidden inside surnames, bloodlines, and family names from across the world. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. The next surname belongs to a princely Rurikid line, and it reveals how the great families splintered as Russia grew. Number 6. Obolensky. The Obolenskys are a princely Rurikid lineage, but interestingly, some genealogists trace their deepest roots to a Western Slavic origin, rather than the Varangian core. As the medieval principalities fragmented, the descendants of ruling princes who lost their thrones did not lose their blood. They became the titled princes of Moscow's service, dozens of branches spreading from single ancestral lines. The Obolenskys are one such branch, and from them split still more families, each taking a new name from a new estate. If your name is Obolensky, your bloodline descends from princes who ruled their own small realms before Moscow swallowed them. Number 5 is a name that quietly proves how genealogy really works, with DNA, not with lists. Number 5. Gagarin. Most people know the name from Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, who was not himself an aristocrat. But the princely Gagarins were an ancient Rurikid house, and here is where it gets remarkable. Between 2006 and 2008, DNA research tested men from several princely families, Gagarin, Hilkov, Kropotkin, Lobanov-Rostovsky, Putyatin, Shakhovskoy, and others, and found that they genuinely shared a single common male ancestor. The paper trail going back 1,000 years to a shared forefather was confirmed in the blood. This is the real tool. Not a surname list, an actual test against documented lineages. If your name is Gagarin, your bloodline may belong to one of the few clans on Earth whose 1,000-year genealogy has been checked against genetics and held up. Number 4 carries a name descended from Byzantium itself. Number 4. Golovin. The Golovins were an ancient noble family of Byzantine descent, who held the title of Count in the Russian Empire. They descended from the Hovrin boyars, who claimed descent from the Gabras family, a genuine noble house of the Byzantine Empire. When Constantinople fell, and Byzantine nobles scattered, some found their way into Russian service, bringing the prestige of the fallen Eastern Roman Empire with them. If your name is Golovin, your bloodline may reach back not to a Russian forest, but to the marble courts of Byzantium. Number 3 is a name carried by a great composer, and it hides a princely origin most Russians never suspect. Number 3. Mussorgsky. The composer Modest Mussorgsky is a household name. That his family was old nobility is far less known. The Mussorgskys were a branch of the rich boyar Monasteryov family, themselves descendants of the princes of Smolensk, of Rurikid stock. The name traces to an ancestor nicknamed Mussorga, counted as the 18th generation from Rurik himself. So a man remembered today for pictures at an exhibition, and Boris Godunov carried, in his surname, a thread running back to the founding dynasty of the Russian state. If your name is Mussorgsky, your bloodline is princely Smolensk blood, hidden inside the name of one of Russia's greatest artists. Number 2 is not a single family, but a whole category, and it is the one that actually built the empire. Number 2, Suvorov, Kutuzov, Davidov, and the service names. Some of the most illustrious surnames in Russian history were not ancient princely houses at all. Alexander Suvorov, the general who never lost a battle. Mikhail Kutuzov, who broke Napoleon. Denis Davidov, the partisan hero. These families rose through service, through the table of ranks that Peter the Great created in 1722, which let a man earn hereditary nobility through merit in the army or the state, regardless of birth. This was the engine that kept the Russian nobility alive, not just blood, but service rewarded with blood rank. If your name is one of these, your bloodline may have earned its nobility on a battlefield, rather than inheriting it in a cradle, which, arguably, is the prouder story. And now, number 1. This is the source. Every Rurikid family in this video, the Dolgorukys, the Obolenskys, the Gagarins, the Mussorgskys, branches from one man, and the chronicles say the tribes went and invited him to rule, because they could not govern themselves. Number 1. The Rurikovich line, the descendants of Rurik. According to the earliest Russian chronicles, Rurik was a Varangian, a Norseman, who died around 879, and whose successors founded the first Russian state at Kiev. His descendants ruled the lands of the Rus for roughly 700 years, until the death of the last Rurikid Tsar and the time of troubles in the early 17th century. As the medieval state fractured, the Rurikids multiplied into scores of princely families, each named for the town or estate it held. Obolensky from Obolensk, Odoyevsky from Odoyev, Shachovskoy, Volkonsky, Kropotkin, Puchatin, on and on. When the senior Odoyevsky line died out in 1869, the seniority of the whole dynasty passed to another branch. The accounting of this bloodline was still being kept, formally, into the modern era. And modern DNA work suggests Rurik's own deep ancestry may trace to a Finno-Ugric population north of Stockholm, meaning the founder of Russia may not have been Slavic at all. If your name is any of the old princely names, your bloodline may run all the way back to a semi-legendary Norse chieftain who, the story goes, was asked to come and rule because a land full of feuding tribes decided it needed a king, and got a dynasty that lasted 7 centuries. 12 surnames, 12 bloodlines, 12 corridors leading back through iron gloves at forgotten battles, Tatar princes and Georgian kings, Byzantine exiles, a table of ranks that let a soldier earn his blood, and a Norse founder invited across the sea to rule a land that could not rule itself. Your name is not a patent of nobility. Most Russian surnames, the Nekrasovs, the Kuznetsovs, the Ivanovs, are common, protective, occupational, and beautiful precisely because they belong to the vast majority who worked the land rather than owned it. But if you carry one of the old princely names, the way to know is not a list, it is the genealogies, the archives, and now the DNA, which has already confirmed 1,000-year lineages in living men. Drop your surname in the comments, and tell me which region your family came from, Smolensk, Ryazan, the Caucasus, the North, because that will tell you more than any suffix. And if your family kept a story across the revolution that tried to erase all of this, say it, because those stories deserve to be heard. If you made it to the end of this video, subscribe to Origins Decoded. Every week we go deeper into the history hidden inside the names people carry without knowing what they mean. The next video is already waiting for you.